Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Expat Conversation with your host, Michael Nolen, here on the University of Guadalajara channel. I want to say thank you for tuning in today. And of course, as always, I'd like to introduce the show. This program is sponsored by the Institute of Innovation, Investigation, and Governance, which is headed up by former General Rector of the University of Guadalajara, Dr. Marco Antonio Cortez Gradado. It's basically an outreach for the expats and anyone else that wants to tune in here in Mexico. We try and give information that helps people have better lives, are able to cope with situations that come up down here if you're living in Mexico or wanting to come and live in Mexico, or if you're a snowbird. But anyway, please watch some of the shows. Before I go any further, I want to say thank you very much to our host today, and every show is the Villa Monte Carlo Resort and Hotel here in west part of Chapala, Mexico, in the state of Jalisco. It's a very, very, very beautiful resort. We have hotel, we have pickleball courts, swimming pools, hotel rooms, of course, conference rooms, up to about 100 people, a really, really nice restaurant, thermal spa. So if you're visiting from out of the country or here in Mexico and you're needing a place to stay, Hotel Villa Monte Carlo is a very, very exceptional resort, and we would appreciate you stopping by, walking around the beautiful, beautiful landscape that's right here on Lake Chapala, and I mentioned all the amenities that there are here. So please, come by if you need a place to stay for one night or for 6 months, and visit the Villa Monte Carlo Resort here in West Chapala on the main road. Well, I want to say thank you again for tuning in. Today I have a very interesting person, Laureen McDonald. I don't think you're part of the McDonald Douglas Corporation or the restaurants, are you? No, but she's a very interesting lady, and I wanted to talk to her today about several different topics. First of all, thank you very much for being on the show.
You bet.
I appreciate it. I understand you've been down here since about 2016.
Yes.
And you moved down from San Francisco area?
Actually, most recently from Oregon.
Oregon.
The Oregon coast.
And you're involved in quite a few different things. The first thing that caught my eye about you was on Facebook. I noticed you were involved with children's music, and that you sponsored or were responsible for helping young students, a lot of string players, violinists, oboe. I don't know all the instruments that the children are learning to play, but is that part of what you do down here?
I personally do not do any teaching, but we have hosted the students that play in the Festival del Lago, which is an international teaching program down here. They usually reserve 50% of the spots for Mexican students, and the rest come from around the world. They usually have far more applicants than they have spaces for. This year, I think they had 63 students,
wow.
64 students. We have a large casa that we're able to house more than anybody else. This year we had 2 students from Mexico, 2 students from Vietnam, and 2 students from the United States. And because all of the students that they give to us to bill it are younger, these were all high school age students,
okay.
Ages 14 to 17. I also ask for a adult. A lot of the students are college age. They're coming from Juilliard and other prestigious universities working on their degrees in music.
How long has this been going on? Because I've been here 5 years and I've never heard of this until...
Really?
Well, you know.
Well, you've heard of Festival de Febrero.
No, I don't think I've heard of that either.
Okay, they just.
I'm like a mushroom. They keep me in the
Okay.
dark and feed me cow manure. It's a nice way to put it.
They just celebrated their 20th year of Festival de Febrero. But the founder, Chris Wilshire, really his heart is in teaching the younger generation. So they developed the August Festival and put it in the summer when students have time off from school so they can come here and learn for 2 weeks.
And very kind people like yourself help sponsor them by giving them somewhere to live, to
Right.
stay, to room and board, basically.
Well, we provide the room, but all of the meals are served at the Festival House, which is near LCS.
Okay.
on the water.
And LC is the Lake Chapala Society.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with the Lake Chapala Society, it's a hub for expats and has been that
Yes.
way here in the lake area for probably 60 years.
Right. So the property where they're doing a lot of lessons, where they're serving all the meals, is right behind LCS. And they're usually making, I mean, between those 60-something students, and this time I think they had 11 instructors flying in from
Wow.
around the world coming to teach. And so they're making, I think Chris said 100 meals per, 3 meals a day, 100 times 100.
Wow.
Well, you know that young people eat a lot, or they can eat
Well,
a
so
lot.
do I.
Well, but between the support staff, you know, it's a army of volunteers going back and forth, picking people up from the airport.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It is.
No wonder I never heard of it.
Yeah. You can volunteer anytime.
Well, I'm volunteered already for the Red Cross golf tournament coming up in a couple months.
Okay.
So, you know, I might have to volunteer for that. Now, what time of year is it again?
The
Summertime.
Right, the Festival de Lago, which is the one that is focused more on teaching the students, is always, they just left last week,
Okay. And how long does it run for?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. So we have 100 or some odd, or 60 some odd students from all over the world come and make and learn more music and how
Yes.
to become more efficient in their instruments. And we
Yes.
have very, from what I'm hearing, you very high quality instructors coming to help also.
And it's amazing the skill level that the students are playing at. And it's one of the things that I really enjoy billeting students, because they have to practice. So if I'm sitting there with my cup of coffee first thing in the morning listening to somebody practice their violin, what a gift.
Well, it sounds like, you know, Neil Diamond wrote a song, What a Beautiful Noise. And that sounds, I was just thinking, boy, that might be a great place to go hang out during the day and get to listen to the beautiful music that they're making. And at the end, or near the end, do they have a concert to where the public can come and listen to all these fantastic students play their music?
There are a number of concerts that are played during the 2 weeks, and the public can purchase tickets. As a host, I get to go to some, you know, free of charge. So if anybody lives in Ajijic and it's within the village, they're always crying for homes. Usually they find 60, 70, 80 homes, people that are willing to open their homes to a student, and all they have to do is provide the bedroom and a bathroom. All of their meals are taken down at the festival house. But it is one of the reasons why they can do this at a reasonable cost for everybody. They're not renting an entire home or entire hotel to house everybody and paying for hotel rooms. So the community really gets together to make this happen.
Well, Lakeside, I've noticed since I've been here in the last 5 years, this is not the only event that Lakeside opens up their doors for.
Right.
I know there's a huge art festival that goes on several times a year. A lot of different musicians. I know some of the performing actors and actresses and musicians and traveling ballets and folklore music that is performed at the University of Guadalajara at the AT&T Theater there at the Theater Diana. They'll come over here for the weekend and do a performance at one of our cultural centers. And they're usually hosted by some family to stay the night so they don't have to pay extra.
Yes.
And so that's one thing about living down here. It's so fun to get to know all these different people and to go to all these different events. There's something happening all the time.
Yes, there is.
And then there's events like this that I'm unaware of, and that's why I wanted you on the show today, because you can inform people about this. Is there any way that besides hosting they can be involved? And can you explain who they need to contact? As you mentioned, it just finished for this summer, 2024, but I'm sure will go on in 25. And you have to start planning this months in advance.
They're planning the next one
now
already.
Well, if I want to host a student next year, who do I contact? And I'm wanting you to give the information to the audience.
Okay.
Who do they contact if you know that information? And is it a phone call? Is it an email? How can they reach out, and who do they need to do it to?
If you want to host a student, or also the maestros that come into town also need a place to stay, and they are very careful on which students they put in which location, because it's a whole lot more work if you're hauling a cello down to the festival house versus a violin. And they are pretty much all string instruments. But if you want to host a student, you can get a hold of Carol Lee Gordon, and you can find her on Facebook. She now has somebody assisting her, and I don't remember that person's name. But there's other volunteer opportunities within the organization.
Well, it sounds like they need people to help serve the food, set up the tables, take down the chairs. And if you're a corporation, or if you're someone that wants to give to a very worthy cause, I'm sure money's always welcome to buy the paper plates, the paper towels, the utensils,
everything,
the cups, the saucers, the trash bags to put all the rubbish in.
It's a quite the operation. I mean, as you know, when was the last time you served 100 people?
Oh, let's see. My wife's family was over the house last weekend.
Yeah.
Everybody knows my wife has a large family, but
yes, but they do that 3 times a day for 2 weeks.
Sounds like the military.
Yeah. Well, and they're also doing special events for the patrons. You know, if you enjoy classical music, please get involved. You know, become a patron, buy season tickets. This will also happen again in February, Festival de Febrero. But that festival that's the one that they just recently celebrated 20 years.
Okay.
That is more focused on the music, and there's more concerts than what just finished this month.
And who's the head of all this? You mentioned there's a gentleman that started it 20 years ago. Is he still involved, or have they?
Chris is still involved.
Okay.
However, he's taking a step back and allowing somebody else to do all the organizing, because Chris teaches. He lives in Guadalajara, I believe, and he does do a lot of teaching the violin up there, and it's actually his parents' home that they offer up for the festival.
And is the festival in February in the same location?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Is there anything else on that topic that you want to add?
Just volunteer if you've got time and you like classical music. It's a really good group of people to work with. I have volunteered in ticket sales. I don't have a lot of time with some of the other more time-consuming volunteer opportunities, but they do exist, for sure.
Well, I also mentioned earlier about the art festival that comes to Puerto Vallarta, to the lakeside area every year. Last year, I believe it was maybe in December, but this is a festival that was started about 25 years ago by a young lady that's about 80 years old, I believe. If I'm getting your age a little wrong, Marianne, I'm very sorry. I did a show with her last year, but she started about 20 years ago with some different artists, craftspeople from all over Mexico, and brought them here for a weekend, kind of held a little festival for them. I think they did it in a small hotel room, and they sold out everything that artists brought with them. Well, over the 20 some odd years, it's grown and grown and grown, and now it's a huge, major international festival. Mainly about 90 artists from all over Mexico come and display, and instead of being about 3 or 4 hours, it's 3 days.
Right.
And I understand it's coming up again in November this year, the
I think it's
8th, 9th, and 10th.
right, the second weekend in November. Feria de
Maestros.
Maestros, sí.
And it's a big festival. And we hosted, my wife and I, last year, a couple that came from Veracruz, and they did some really, really unique type art. But that's another festival that you've been involved in a little bit, because
A little bit.
at your hacienda, you host some of the artists also, correct?
We haven't hosted artists, but we have groups of people that come to our place, and we bring them to that art festival.
Now, do you just share your home with friends, or do you have an Airbnb or a?
It's a private home.
Private home, and it's vacation when you invite people.
Yes.
Here, let me give you my number.
Well, we have tennis camps at our property. We have a fabric and sand tennis court, and we bring people down from the United States and do tennis camps.
You mentioned earlier that someone in your family was a professional tennis instructor in the United States.
Yes, he's a tennis pro, and this property he purchased back in 1978.
That was back when Hugh Hefner was down here and had the Playboy Mansion South, which is just about a mile from here.
Really?
I don't know if you didn't know that?
No.
I'll show you where it's at in a little while.
Okay.
Yeah, he owned a big mansion down here, and I know you know where it's at. You just didn't realize the history.
Just didn't know it.
But it was down here for several years.
No, my brother-in-law bought the property where I'm living in 1978 because it had a tennis court. Isn't that every tennis player's dream, to have their own court? So he brings groups of people down, and week long, and they play tennis in the morning, and we go do fun stuff like the art festival and different field trips, and play during the rest of the day.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good event. I know when I was in Puerto Vallarta and had my radio show there, I guess about 5 or 6 years ago, they started bringing professional men's tennis players and had a big tournament. It's grown tremendously. I think the first year they started over there, they had like the top 200th player in the world down to about 150th. I mean, it wasn't the top tier, but some of the players that were rehabbing, that were in the top 20, 30 players in the world,
Right.
when they were hurt and rehab, they played lower, and they were coming to Puerto Vallarta. And now over the years, it's grown to where they have some, the top, it's gone from like 200 to 150 to now like 100 to 50. So they're getting the better cream of the crop. And I know Guadalajara is getting ready to host a major women's tennis tournament. And so there's a lot going on down here. A lot of people seem to come from all over the world and want to do art and crafts, festivals, music, sports.
Right.
I know there's a company out of Colorado called Crown Productions, I believe. They bring the top 10 women's college softball teams out of the United States to Puerto Vallarta every year. Well, it's actually around, I think, January before the season starts, and they play, 5 teams play one weekend and 5 teams play another. And they're, the best women's softball players in the world. And many of them go on to the Olympic teams and the pro teams. But I can proudly brag, being from Oklahoma, that the Oklahoma Sooners girls softball team has won the national championship, I think 3 times in a row.
Wow.
3-peated this year, and I think they won it like 8 out of the last 12 or something like that. So,
impressive.
Hey, they're the best sports team we have in Oklahoma, our University of Oklahoma women's softball team.
Very good.
And they come down there every year too. So if you're an Okie listening, hey, come on down and watch your girls play softball. Okay, you're involved in the tennis, you're involved in the music, you're involved a little bit in the festival, and we were talking about the arts festival before I wandered off like I always do to another place. The Crafts and Arts Festival is going to be November 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Right.
And very important, if you were there last year and several years in the past, it's always been at the Marina Yacht Club over here in Lake Chapala. But in 2024, it's moving. This year it's going to be November 8th through the 10th. And where's it going to be?
Real de Chapala.
Which is a resort hotel?
It's a hotel in Lower La Floresta in Ajijic.
Okay. So you can go online. I think they do have their own website.
They do.
And I don't know the exact cost. It's probably it's like everything else down here. Nothing costs more than 15, 20 bucks.
Right.
So it's like 100 pesos or 200 pesos, and that allows you entrance to the gate, and then you get to walk from stand to stand, booth to booth, and see about 70 to 80 of some of the best artists from all over Mexico.
Cream of the crop.
It is, and they bring some of the most unique art and crafts that you'll ever see. And the thing that's really cool, and the way it's been designed, they don't bring 20 painters and 20 potteries people and 20 people that do something else. Every single artist is specialized, and they make sure they don't have very many that do the exact same thing because it's repetitive, and they don't want to do that. So,
well, it's juried. They only allow in X amount of people doing these because they don't want everybody doing the same thing.
And that's great because the people bring a lot of their art. A lot of these artistic people, they work all year long for this one festival, and they will bring hundreds of pieces that they have created, and 9 times out of 10, every one of them goes home empty. They sell everything they bring, which is great because they live off of that money for the rest of the year. So that's another really, really fantastic event that's going to be taking place here in November. And of course, as you know and I know and everybody that lives down here knows, the weather is perfect down here. The rainy season will be over. The temperatures won't be over 80 degrees. Well, at that time of year, probably 75. Won't get below 60. And eternal spring is what we have down here Lakeside. It's just beautiful, beautiful weather. And so we're very, very fortunate to be able to living down here. And as I mentioned, the cost of getting to go see some world-class events and listening to world-class music and world-class art and dancing and different things like that. Like I said, I don't think I've ever paid over 100 pesos, which is $5, or maybe 200, which is $10, or a little bit less. And it's just incredible the talent that's down here.
Yes.
Okay, we talked about this, we talked about that, we talked about what now? What do you want to talk about that you're involved in? I know one thing that you is near to your heart and your husband. You raise a certain type of dog.
Peary.
And I don't know if that dog's going to come over here and be on the show or not. If it does, this is the first time we've had an animal on the program besides myself.
Peary.
And there's a lot of pet lovers down here.
Just let him go.
I've never lived anywhere
Just let him go.
in the world where people love their pets so much. And she has, and her husband has brought their pet over. Come on over. And what type of dog is this?
This is a Xoloitzcuintli.
Okay.
This is the national dog of Mexico.
It is. I thought the Chihuahua was.
No,
There he is. Is it a he or a she?
This is a he.
Okay, we'll jump up there on her lap. And
How about
do you speak English or Spanish?
both? He's
Oh,
kind of
both. You're bilingual. That's a hell of a deal, isn't it?
Here
I'm going to
is-
ask you a question.
Yeah.
What's on the side of a tree? Bark! Bark! And what's on top of a house? Roof! Roof! That is a smart dog. And I'm not a very good ventriloquist, but anyway, you get the joke.
Peary's, actually, his half-brother is the #1 miniature Xolo in all of Mexico right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I like his haircut. It kind of looks like mine.
I love and adore dogs, but I tell you, to have somebody who does not shed, who does not get fleas, this is near and dear to my heart.
And he doesn't eat a lot, like my neighbor. I'm helping one of my neighbors, a good friend of mine, has got 5, not bulldogs. They're not, I don't know what they are, but they're big. Mm-hmm. And they can eat a whole lot of food.
Yeah.
I don't know how he affords to feed them all, but anyway, that one probably doesn't eat a whole lot.
This is a miniature Xolo Escuintla.
Okay.
They also come in medium size and a larger size, so a standard and an intermediate and miniature. I have 2 more at home.
Okay. Are they all a dark brown chocolate color?
No, they can be even any color, but they can come in a mottled color, which is known as mariposa. This is the dog that guides you to the afterlife. They will guide you to Mictlan when it is your time is done.
I've seen a poster or a mural of this type of dog over by one of my favorite, well, try behind my bank, the Intercom Bank, over here on the main stretch, and it's right down by Taste of Thailand.
Yes,
one of the best Thai restaurants down here. I've seen a big mural to that dog, and I didn't know. Well, I don't want you to be Joe Black.
Yeah.
You knew who Joe Black was? There's a movie called Meet Joe Black with Brad Pitt, who, by the way, if you didn't know it, Brad Pitt is from Shawnee, Oklahoma. Just right down the street from where I was born. Yeah, he's an Okie. Not from Muskogee, from Shawnee. But anyway, he was in a movie called Meet Joe Black, and he was afterlife coming back to take people. Mm-hmm. And anyway, I don't want your dog to come see me for about another 40 years. Is that okay?
Well, have you been to Huachimatones, the round pyramids?
Where are Whatties? Huachimatones.
Huachimatones.
No, I haven't been to Huachimatones.
If you're into archaeology at all, it's on the way if you were driving to where all the distilleries are.
Tequila.
Tequila. It's on the way to Tequila. But Huachimatones, in there, it's a very cool field trip if you enjoy learning old. But if you go to their visitor center, they have an area where they've excavated, and it's got a plexiglass floor section, and you can see the skeletal remains of the human and a Xolo, because when the master dies, the dog was sacrificed, because that's the only way he's going to show him the way to Mictlan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, you've taught me a lot today.
Oh.
And I hope all the audience is listening too, but that's very, very interesting, and I never knew that. And my wife probably does, being from Mexico. But,
Right. But I highly recommend you take a field trip there. It's just beautiful. And there's some wonderful guides. And
that's about a 30-minute drive outside of Guadalajara, going southwest towards Tequila. No, it'd be
Probably.
Yeah.
I've only left from here before, and it's a long drive. But well, it's a long drive to Tequila.
Well, you know, you can take the big auto pista now that they have. It goes around, drops you 16 miles this side of Tequila, and it's a whole lot faster. Of course, it costs about $20, but okay. Well, I bored him to sleep, which, you know, I hope I'm not boring the rest of the audience to sleep. Hope they're paying attention. We're about out of time today. I want to say thank you very much for coming and visiting. What haven't we touched on that you'd like the listening audience to know?
If you do decide to move down here, if you're not living down here already, please get involved in the community. There's a lot of need out there, whether it's dog rescue. I do have my intermediate Xolo at home is a rescue from Guadalajara
Wow.
who came to us abused and beat up, and we don't want to go there.
Well, this one has royal blood in it.
Yes,
so,
he does.
You know, I'm
He
sure he
does.
wasn't a street dog.
No, he was not a street dog.
How old is this dog?
He's 3 now.
3 years
I
old.
co-own this dog with the breeder because this dog was her pick out of this particular litter. And so I said, yeah, sure, I'll co-own with you.
Well, he's a whole lot better behaved than I am.
Okay.
You got good manners.
Sometimes.
And you're not near as loud and noisy as I am.
Well,
so I appreciate you.
it is a primitive breed. They're not for everybody, but there is a lot of dogs that need homes, need care, need walking at the ranch, at Lucky Dog. There's all kinds of places where you can get involved if you want to get involved in dog rescue, cat rescue, helping feed the hungry. There's thrift stores that, like a number of them in Riberas, that are focused on supporting those in need that you can get involved in.
I used to have a really good friend named Kinky Freeman. He actually ran for governor of Texas many years back, but he had the largest animal rescue in the state of Texas. I mean, he did everything from horses to snakes, any kind of animal or mammal, except 2-legged ones. He would rescue, and he just passed away about 4 months ago, but he had an extremely large animal rescue program, and I tried to get him to come down here a time or two, but in his older age, he was just too feeble to come. But yeah, there are a lot of programs down here, and my wife's involved in a thing with, I think it's called St. Roque. It's through the Catholic Church, to where they have blessings of animals. St. Roque, or Roque, I'm pronouncing it wrong, is the patron saint through the Catholic Church of animals. And they bless all the cats and dogs in the little village we live in about twice a year, and all the owners, and there's usually 200-300 pets there. So it's pretty amazing. But anyway, well, we're about out of time. I want to say thank you very much for
Thank
you
you so
taking the
much.
time to come
You
and
bet.
visit with the audience, and you gave out a lot of really important information. We appreciate that.
Okay.
And I
Thank
hope
you.
to see you for sure at the Arts Festival, and then
Yes.
maybe I'll be over there volunteering, serving some groceries and stuff like that
Perfect.
for the young artists next year and musicians.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much for
Okay.
taking the time to tune in today. I hope you learned something. That's the whole basis of this show, is to try and educate. Of course, we're funded and sponsored by the University of Guadalajara, so it makes sense, right?
Yes.
To try and educate people.
Yes.
And again, thank you to Dr. Marco Antonio Cortez Gradado, Institute of Innovation, Investigation, and Governance, for letting us do this show. And also thank you to Villa Monte Carlo. Don't forget, if you need to come over here and have a really great place to stay or visit, or thermal baths. They also have thermal baths right up here.
Yes, that's awesome.
And you know, have a good time here. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Happy trail.